Trust Once Lost, Chapter 35, No Smoking. My coat felt hot and prickly, and I wanted to push Applejack away, but I didn't want her to go. Why couldn't I just hold myself together back there? Why did I allow myself to get so attached to Applejack? I should have known it would just end up causing pain, and I'd probably just made things worse.
I'm okay.
I said.
Thank you for taking care of me. I wanted to see you before I had to go. I don't want to make this difficult. They won't have to drag me. No pony's taking you away, sweet pea.
My face burned, my breath caught, and I felt a weight in the pit of my stomach.
They're not?
How could I have misread the situation so completely? I wanted to feel relieved, but I couldn't. If I was wrong about this, then how could I be sure of anything? If my judgment was impaired, then how could I protect myself? I'd made an absolute fool of myself.
You're okay, sweet pea.
Applejack comforted.
What's wrong? You can tell me.
I cringed. She'd never understand. If she saw me reacting negatively to the news I'd be staying with her, what if I had a panic attack right now? That would...
Honesty, Green, honesty. I'm embarrassed.
I explained.
I got really anxious over nothing, and every pony saw me crying over something that didn't even happen. And now I'm feeling...
I struggled to find the right words.
You don't have to be embarrassed about getting scared.
Applejack said.
Every pony gets scared sometimes, and telling other ponies that you're scared is a brave thing to do. Yeah, if it's voluntary.
Dayglow and Morninglight re-entered the room. I couldn't look them in the eye.
Are you feeling better, Green?
Asked Dayglow.
I'm sorry. There's nothing for you to be sorry for,
said Morninglight.
Sometimes strong emotions come up in therapy, but that's part of the process. You call that therapy? I said I didn't want to talk to you, but you kept going. You said you were feeling anxious and you didn't want to be there.
Morninglight explained.
If you asked me to stop, I would— Don't gaslight me!
I snarled.
I know what I said! I'm sorry if I made you feel that way,
said Morninglight.
I really am trying to help you.
I took a breath, and my body gave an involuntary shudder.
It's fine. I shouldn't have said anything. Why's that?
She asked.
Just make it end! I'm thinking she said she don't want to talk to you.
Applejack raised an eyebrow. I blinked at Applejack.
Right.
The therapist pony said.
Sorry, I'll see you two next week, maybe.
Her ears went down as she exited the room, and I immediately felt sorry for her. Damn ponies with their impossible-to-resist adorableness.
All right, well, Applejack and I were just discussing how things have been going with your foster placement,
said Dayglow.
Were there any difficulties or concerns you wanted to talk about while we're here, Green?
I thought about it for a moment.
I don't want to go back to school,
I said.
I can self-educate myself more efficiently than if I was sitting in a classroom, and I really don't want to be in a classroom full of children. You don't have to go back to school right now, but I do want you to get back in the classroom eventually,
Dayglow replied.
Princess Luna has granted us sufficient bits to pay for any assistance you may need, so our options are quite open. Okay, well, how about a one-on-one tutor then?
I'd always imagined that if I was rich, that's the way I'd want to learn.
That can be arranged, certainly,
said Dayglow.
But education isn't the only reason I want you back in school. Yeah, I know,
I said dryly.
Make some friends. It's more than that,
Dayglow replied.
If we let you run away from social interaction forever, your anxiety is only going to get worse.
I didn't have a good response for that.
How would you feel about going back to school if you had an adult that you can trust who would stay with you the whole time? What, so Applejack is going to come to school with me now? No, this would be a teacher's assistant. Or maybe a carer. I'm not that bad! Am I?
In one day of school, I nearly peed myself, had a panic attack, and got so angry that I fainted.
Oh god, I'm a total basket case.
I cringed at the things the other students would say about me, but at the same time, at least it would make them less likely to fuck with me, and I'd have another adult to talk to.
I guess that would be okay. If you're still up for it, did you want to say hello to the nurses who took care of you while you were here? Alright.
I nodded.
I just hope I wasn't too annoying. Sweetie, you don't need to worry about that,
said Dayglow.
You were a perfect angel. And I think they found your little nurse act quite endearing.
Well, if a little kid was going around pretending to be a nurse, I guess that would be pretty cute. But wait, if they're all enthusiastic about this, they might have set something up for me. Or be expecting me to come and be disappointed if I don't show up. Well, I have to go now. I didn't even get them a card. Walking through the hospital, I felt more at home than I had in a while. Everyone had their own jobs to do. They only glanced up for long enough to see that Dayglow was with us. The nurse's break room was busier than I expected. Even on a larger ward, it was rare for more than 2 or 3 nurses to be on break at the same time, and the room had clearly been sized with that in mind. There was a stack of pizza boxes on the central table as if an apology for staffing issues, but the atmosphere seemed too cheerful for that to be the case. I didn't recognize any of the nurses in the room by name, but they looked familiar. Especially the pink Pegasus and the pink unicorn. There was a lot of pink. The unicorn was one of the trainees that looked after me.
Melanie?
No, that wasn't a pony name. Her cutie mark was a pair of musical notes.
Melody? Ugh.
Better to just say nothing than to get it wrong. I couldn't read her badge from this angle, and I didn't want her to see me staring at her badge because then she'd know I'd forgotten her name. The nurses greeted me fondly, but I wasn't sure how much of that was because they liked me rather than just being friendly to the poor little orphan filly. It felt genuine. I felt safe. They all knew me, and as a nurse, I felt I could understand them too. We'd shared an experience. If they weren't all so much taller, I could almost convince myself that we were colleagues. Applejack noticed my apprehension at the height difference and helped me up onto a chair one of the nurses had vacated when they saw us walk in. My mouth began to water as I was hit with a greasy, doughy scent of the pizzas in front of me.
Courtesy of the princess,
Dayglow explained.
She paid us for lunch as thanks for us looking after you. Help yourself. Will there be enough left over?
I asked. I didn't want to be that guy. Or is it that pony?
What do you mean? For the ponies working the night shift. Oh, honey, you don't really think Princess Luna would let us forget the night shifts, do you?
Nurse Redheart chimed in. How Redheart knew her entry cues would forever remain a mystery.
I guess that would be an easy way to get your dreams haunted.
I pretended to look thoughtful.
Luna would never use her powers to...
Applejack began to reassure me.
I mean, there was that one time.
Redheart smirked as she lay a fetlock across my withers.
So, we decided that night shift should have their pizza delivered fresh. Sounds like a sensible precaution.
I nodded sagely. Dayglow rolled her eyes. There was no pepperoni pizza, of course, but I found plain cheese pizza and managed to somewhat awkwardly grab a slice with my hoof. I didn't quite manage the technique I saw the other ponies use to hold their pizza. Somehow, they managed to grab only the crust and have the slice remain rigid. My self-consciousness went up another notch when I realized my hooves were now covered in grease and pizza crumbs, so I couldn't put them down on the floor. The sink the others were using to wash their forehooves before returning to work was too tall for me to reach, and because I'd used both my forehooves, I would have to balance on my hind legs just to walk over to it. Redheart seemed to read my mind, but in reality she probably just observed my eye movements when she proceeded to pull a small plastic tub with some wet hand towels from under her hat.
Your hat is magic, right?
I asked, wiping my hooves with the towels.
That's how you always have the right thing under your hat when you need it.
Now that I knew bags of holding existed in this universe, it was the obvious explanation. Redheart smiled and put a nurse's hat on my head.
Why don't you try it?
She may just be joking, but if I assumed she wasn't, then I hadn't heard her say any words when she was summoning an item, so it must be thought-activated. I imagined pulling a roll of medical tape from under my hat. Then I reached under it and it was just my own mane.
This is just a normal hat, isn't it?
I groused.
It looks good on you,
she said.
It's yours, actually. We figured you'd like to have one.
On one hoof, they were treating me like a child playing dress-up, but on the other, they were accepting me into their group. Tears welled in my eyes as I grasped Red Heart in a hug that seemed to actually take her by surprise. I couldn't put my thought into words, but a few tears ran down my muzzle. I took the opportunity to quiz some of the nurses about their work, trying to work out the similarities and differences between nursing in Equestria and on Earth. More pizza was consumed. Dagla left after a while, but Applejack stayed. There was a rotating cast of nurses as some had to return to the floor, and others took their place. The nurses were suitably impressed when I took the part of translating medical terms so Applejack could understand the conversation.
How can you talk about that stuff while you're eating?
Applejack looked a little green around the gills.
Oh.
I rubbed the back of my head.
I kinda forgot you weren't used to this sort of thing.
The nurse I was talking to blinked, as if remembering just now that I wasn't actually a nurse. She smiled and patted me on the head.
I guess she just has a strong stomach.
I giggled.
I think Applejack knows from experience that that's not the case.
The nurse's expression shifted to serious.
Oh, you've been throwing up a lot? Nah, nothing like that.
I placated.
It was only once while I was at the hospital. But throwing up on some pony leaves a lasting first impression.
You'd be surprised how many nice ponies I've met that way.
It's such a glamorous profession we find ourselves in.
I went to mime tossing my non-existent hair pretentiously, only to fail by successfully tossing my mane. A sense of wrongness wormed its way into my brain, but it passed.
It's the hat,
she quipped.
Stallions can't resist a Marin uniform.
I wore the hat on the way home, but only because it was the easiest way to carry it. It wasn't like I wanted every pony to know I thought I was a nurse, or worse, for the other kids at school to make fun of me for playing dress-up, or bullying me for wanting to be a nurse.
Today went better than expected,
said Applejack.
Wouldn't you say? Ugh.
I groaned.
I ate too much pizza.
To be fair, in this body, my eye plates were literally larger than my stomach.
Sore tummy? I'll live. Apple Bloom and her friends will be home from school by now,
Applejack said.
They'll probably be over in their clubhouse. Unless you want to lay down for a spell.
I sighed.
Nah, I promised Granny I would go out and play this afternoon. I'm sure she would understand. A promise is a promise,
I replied.
I just hope there isn't too much running around. Okay, Crusaders!
I could hear Apple Bloom from well outside the clubhouse.
Back to the business of earning our cutie marks. Any suggestions?
That sounded really familiar.
No, we've tried everything.
Scootaloo moaned.
We've run out of ideas,
said Sweetie Belle. Wait, I know this scene. They're about to break into a song to get their cutie marks. I like the song, even though I couldn't really stand to watch that episode, for obvious reasons.
Well, Granny said that Green was finally gonna come crusading with us today,
Apple Bloom said.
We should ask her. Oh no.
You know, that was a lot more satisfying than I thought. Green was actually having a good time with them. Anyways, let's get on to our good-natured donators. Top donators: Jessie Smith, Star 630, BadassWaffle, Only One Thing, Ceru, Orion, and IronSky. Matchbook 109, JockeTF, JockeTF, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel, Sky, Sauce, and Rollins, 2 Hex. Sir Brother, Mordred, Armacon, Library, Rinside, 9052, Will, Krista, Wiki, Russell, Shadow, Malu, JD8, Chancellor Crust, Big Smoke, 369, Bobcat, GGF, Murder Princess, and many more amazing people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.